Do you want to bring balance to all the wireless radiation fields in your life, including 5G? The Omnia Radiation Balancer is a small sticker you can stick on any device. It changes the state of the field and creates a new resonance between the wireless radiation and your energy field. On the link below, you'll see all our testing results that show how the body responds excellently once you've made this change in your life. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount. It's easy to bring balance back to your body with the Omnia Radiation Balancer.
Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome back. This is another SSP whistleblower, Daryl James, who just recently came forward on Super Soldier Talk YouTube channel with James Rink, and it was his first time ever coming forward outside of his therapy sessions. So his story is incredible. His testimony is incredible. He's former U.S. Navy. We're going to do a two-part episode here, so we're not going to waste a whole lot of time. I do want to let you guys know really quick, Aaron and I will be speaking at a conference in Sedona, the Great Family of Light Gathering, July 23rd through the 25th. Yep. Tickets are on sale, $333 for the weekend or $111 for the live stream. And you can get those tickets. We'll have a link below, familyoflight.info. And you can get the tickets there. So come hang out with us in Sedona. It should be a lot of fun. You guys know the promo codes. Journey to Truth 10 for 10% off the Hopewell Farm CBD. And that gets you, 10% off.
10% off.
Yeah, I just said it. 15% off of Teespring with promo code CGI Joe. We could change that to Deep Fake Joe, Clone Joe.
We got to do something else now. Yeah.
Somebody. And then obviously 10% off with promo code TRUTH in all caps for the Omnia Radiation Balancer, which you guys just watched the commercial for. So with that out of the way, welcome to the show, Daryl. We're glad to have you on, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So just from what I know of your testimony, the little that I've heard, it's quite fascinating. Your memory recall is incredible. And I really want to kind of go in chronological order. How this happened from your time in the military, explain the recruitment process, and just how you found your way into the programs.
Yeah, I just got back from Iraq, and I got stationed at, it was called JMF RAF Saint Mawgan Joint Maritime Force / Royal Airforce in Saint Mawgan, Royal Air Force Base. And
what year was this?
This was in 2003.
Okay.
And yeah, I got to the base, and it was just like, it was like a weird base. It was even like the first class when he picked me up, we went to McDonald's, he said, you know, this is a weird base, man. Like, even like everybody kind of had, I don't know, weird stories about the base. It was a strange base. But anyways, I had watch. No, wait. They called me up like my third day there, and they had me do security for some Siemens guys. They were just workers, like civilian workers at Siemens. And they had me as security, and I escorted them at the underground base. And it was the first time I went to the underground base. And I just went in, and when you first go in, there's a sliding glass door, and there was like a metal detector, it looked like. And they didn't want to go through. I remember the head guy, he said, I'm not going through that bloody thing. And he walked around it. So I didn't want to go around in it either because he didn't want to. So I went to walk around it, but then the guard that was there, he said, no, you walk through. And I looked at it and I just thought, well, it's a metal detector, so not a big deal. So I just went through it. I was there with them for a few hours watching them, then we left. Then I had watch on Friday. I had the 0 to 4, balls to 4, 00 to 4, midnight to 4 a.m. And I met guy named Michael Aquino. I think he was a colonel in the Army, and I just remembered him from Oprah as a kid. He had like turned up eyebrows, like
Yeah.
and he was looking through papers, like at the desk, like he was looking through files at the quarterdeck, and I was just doing rover watch. So I introduced myself to him. I said, good evening, sir, just out of respect, and I stood next to the chair until he said I could sit down. I sat down, and I talked to him for a while, and I don't know. He just gave me I just didn't want to be around him. I knew who he was. And I just said, excuse me, sir, I'm going to go on for another round. And that was about it. And then I had watched the next Friday, which doesn't happen much, another 104 watch. And that time there was a heavy set first class petty officer with a blonde mustache, a blonde guy. And he pointed at the computer monitor. It was just a regular computer. And he said, hey, what do you think about that? And he pointed at the screen, and it was just like a stereotypical, like, little gray that you see, like, on TV or whatever.
Just a gray alien, just like a...
It was just a little one. It was looking up, like, at the corner of, like, a room, and it was motionless. So I thought it was just like a picture. I didn't think it was like anything else. I was like, oh, what did you get that off the internet? And he said, look. And next to that sliding glass door, there was a window that was like 6 inches from the ceiling and 6 inches from the floor. It's a huge, like, plexiglass window. And it was standing in that room. And he said, look, he pointed at the window. And I said, it would freak me out immediately. And it was just standing there. And he said, do you mind if it comes in? And I said, does it mind if I stare at it? Because I was just thinking, I don't know, is it like an animal? If I stare at it too long, will it attack me or something? I didn't know what to think. Because I didn't have a computer at the time. I didn't have, I wasn't into like any of this stuff. I don't know. I was a guy who worked construction. And he said, no, it doesn't mind. When he said that, it said it too, like in my head, like they say, like I heard a voice in my head said, no, I don't mind. And it walked out the door, and then the sliding glass door opened, and it walked out. And that same guard was behind it with a rifle slung around his shoulder. And it had like a little pistol in its hand. And I kept on saying, gun, 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 like I didn't know what it was. And all three of them, including it, like in my head, again, said it's not a gun. And it showed it to me, like put its hand out. And it looked like a little silver pistol to me. I didn't know what it was. And so now I'm thinking like maybe it's like one of those syringe things like from Star Trek, and maybe it's going to inject me with something. Or I was trying to reason this. And
really quick, was this room that you were in where you were doing watch, right?
Yeah, this was the quarterdeck, which is like the I don't know, it's like the lobby of the base. It's like where you check in. When you first arrive to a new command. It's like the brain of the base. And
this wasn't underground.
No, this was right at the front entrance of the underground base.
And there's just
like right before you went underground.
And there's just a gray in there working.
Yeah, just like in an office room. It was just above ground. There's just this gray, and so I was in the chair, and it walked towards me, and I didn't know what to think, and then it just stopped, and it took apart like a cheap government issue Dell computer really fast, like in 8 seconds. It took off like probably 8 screws on this side, 12 on the back, 8 on the other side, and it was one of those ones you had to slide up and set it down, and split it up, because it was short above its head, and slid it down. It popped out the 2 chips of RAM, put it on top of the table, and there were already other 2 chips there. It had to reach above its head because it was small, and it grabbed it, and it slammed those other 2 chips in. Then it slid the top back on, and it still had the screws in its hand, and it was kind of like, I don't know, like flicking its hand forward, and it set it every time perfectly in between its fingers, and just boom, 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 and put it back together like in 8 seconds. It was insane. It was like a machine, the way it did it. And then it just stood there and looked at me. And I remember it had really long fingers to the point where it had to have its hands in C shapes, or it would have drug its fingers on the ground. Like it could have picked something up off the ground without bending its back or knees. Really? It had really like thick knuckles, black eyes. It kind of gave you like that spider, when you see a spider, a really big spider feeling, it gave you like a really creepy, uncomfortable feeling when you saw it. And it just stood there. And I looked to the left, and it like turned over so I could see. And I looked the other side, and it turned. It was almost like it was there for me to just observe it. And I looked at its hands, and it moved its hands back and forth and let me see that. And then I just almost got kind of bored with it. And it just walked away, and the guard walked behind it. And I remember I was like pinching my leg as hard as I could. I was trying to give myself like a blood blister because I thought maybe they were gonna wipe my mind or something. So maybe if I had some sort of physical injury that I would remember. And the guy said, "Do you think you're dreaming?" And I said, "No, I want to remember this." And he said, "You'll remember the first class petty officer at the desk."
Yeah, that's what Johann Fritz refers to as like an anchor point.
Mm-hmm.
You almost hurt yourself. He would dig his thumb into his palm and create pain. So you remember, yeah. So it becomes real.
Yeah. Like I wanted some sort of like mark or bruise or something. So in case I woke up in the morning, maybe if they did wipe my mind, maybe I would still remember. Yeah, I didn't know what I wasn't thinking rationally. I don't think at the time. I was just trying to, I don't know, figure this out. But the first class said, "What did you think about that?" And I said, "Pretty weird." And he said, "Do you think you could work around something like that?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't see why not." And then he started going on the computer and he started like asking me questions. And he said, "You're smart." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you're really smart." And I said, "Well, how?" I said, "Like what? Like 140, 150 IQ?"
You didn't even know, really?
I didn't know. And he goes, "No, more like 190, 195. And he showed me the screen, and there was just like a bunch of lines, like, and it looked like missile command. It was really low tech. Like military is really low tech because it's harder to hack into. Not all of it, but like certain things, you know what I mean? Like it's not big time graphics or anything like in the movies. It was just a bunch of dots going from left to right. And it was a guy, he said, "You're the second smartest person on base." And there's a guy above me, and I was right below him. And then it went down a ways, and then it was like everybody else. And he looked at the very bottom. He goes, "See, those are the guys you work with." Because I was in CVs. And he said, "Why are you in CV?" And I said, "Well, I had a marijuana paraphernalia charge when I was 19. I could only do construction or be a cook." So he was just typing on the computer, and he said, "What do you like to do? Do you have any hobbies? Did you just like to surf or anything like that?" And I said, "I used to play classical guitar in high school when I was a kid." And he's like, "Oh, he goes, "Oh, like that, and you'll have plenty of time to practice because you'll be an officer." He asked me if I had any tattoos, and I said no. And he said, "Good, the Germans don't like tattoos." And I said, "Germans?" And he's like, "Yeah, there's Germans up there, and there's some other stuff." And he was really vague about it, and he didn't call it space or anything like that. He just said up there. And I said, "What was that thing?" And he said, "We don't know, but they've been here as long as us."
Are you talking about the gray?
Yeah, the gray. I think he was just referring to ETs in general or something that were on the Earth. It's almost like I was confused though. He goes, "We don't know what they are, but they've been here as long as us."
So
And we got into a war with them, and they were forced underground or something like that. We were part of the war a long time ago. There was some sort of war, he said. And yeah.
So
what were we saying?
I was just going to ask. So prior to seeing that gray, have you had any knowledge up to that point as far as ETs? So it didn't this clearly didn't shock you that much.
Oh man, I was scared. Like, I was thinking about, I thought about running for, I would freak me out. I've seen the cover of a Whitley Strieber book and stuff like that, but I mean,
but you didn't think they were real.
The third time, huh?
Yeah, you didn't think they were real, or
yeah, and I didn't think I'd see them on this base. This was just some crappy base, as far as I knew, and yeah, it was just a dinky base out in the middle of like tin mining and sheep wool, selling wool and selling tin were the two main exports in this area. Or that, and we were just out in the middle of nowhere,
hiding in plain sight. Hiding in plain sight. I mean, that's where these bases are, I think, especially entrances.
Yeah. And I don't know. He told me he said, "Do you know the guy who always gets the?" He was talking about the guy who always gets first place on the PRT test, which is physical readiness test. The most push-ups, the sit-ups, and runs the fastest. And I said, "Yeah, I know that guy." And he said, "That's me." And I said, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm 35 now." He said, "I joined the secret space program." And he said, "That was me." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "That's why I'm wearing a mustache or something." That's what he said. I'm in disguise. And I didn't know what to believe him. And I remember I started to almost kind of panic or get kind of upset with him because he was just being so nonchalant about it. And he told me, "You need to go for another round." And I walked around the base and came back. And I don't know. That was about with that, how much that panned out. And I remember guys the next day, like, were saying, "What did you think?" Like with this guy named Orlando came up to me and said, "What did you think?" And I, "About what?" And he's like, "Did you see it?" He goes, big black eyes, long spindly fingers, kind of creepy looking. And I said, "Oh yeah." And I actually forgot about it almost because it was just such a, distortion of reality. It was almost like I wanted to forget. It was almost like I thought it was a bad dream at first or something. I didn't know how to really wrap my head around it. But yeah, and then he said, "Yeah, I heard you're the second on base," and he was kind of like the gossip, like he kind of knew everything on base. I said, "Yeah." He's like, "You know who the smartest is?" And I said, "No." He said, "The XO," and that's the executive officer. He's like the second in command on the base. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I think that Monday, after I had watch on Friday, I saw him like on Saturday or so, I believe. And then that Monday, I talked to the XO came to my workstation, like in person, which never happens. It's like they might call you over to their office, but you never just see him in person. And he asked me to go for a walk with him, and I did. And he, once we got to a certain spot, you know, far enough away from all the buildings, he said, "Have you ever heard of Project Solar Warden?" Petty Officer James. And I said, "No." And there was, I forget if do you guys know the name of the guy? Was it McKinley?
Gary McKinnon?
Yeah.
The hacker.
That happened like a year ago. And he said,
2002, right?
Did you hear about that? About them hacking into NASA? And I was in the battalion at the time. And I said, "No, like I really didn't read the paper. I was always working." And he said, "Well, it's all true." He said, "Off-world officers and the social security numbers and the ranks and you know, the pictures of the cigar-shaped craft over the moon and all this other stuff." He says, it's all real, all of it. And
wow.
He said, with your scores, I guarantee you'll make commander and you'll make pilot. And I said, "Pilot of what?" And he said, 4-kilometer long starship. And he asked me if I ever saw Battlestar Galactica. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "They look kind of like that." And yeah, it was just
interesting.
I was just trying to wrap my head around it.
That's what Johan even said. He used 4 kilometers. He said, I asked him what size one of the ship was, and he said about 4 kilometers. That's massive. Yeah. Like, I don't think we can actually comprehend that if we saw that floating above our heads.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I said the mileage, and he knew it exact. You know, he knew the exact pinpoint, you know, to the decimal point of what mileage it would have been. And yeah, he asked me that, and I thought, and then he said, he told me what was going to happen. He says, "You volunteer for the program, we'll put you in, you'll do 20 years, we'll send you back in time 20 years, age regress you 20 years, wipe your memory, and you'll just wake up in bed like nothing happened." And I mean, I just was thinking of the future, and I said,
"You're like, what?"
Yeah.
You're like, right, yeah.
That was one thing I said. I said, "Well, I can believe time travel, and I can believe, you know, all this other stuff, but age regression didn't seem reasonable to me." And I said, I don't believe that." And he said, "Well, after what you just saw, you don't believe that?" And I said, "Well, touche, sir, but no." And he said, "Well, it's all true." Like, he really had no other. He didn't want to convince me I was wasting his time as far as he's concerned.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought about it, and I said, "Well, you know," I thought about the future, and I thought, like, "Oh, that sounds interesting, but it sounds sad too." In the sense, I said, "Well," I said, "Are there women there?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, could I have children?" And he said, "Well, your scores, you'll be expected to have children." And I said, "Well, what will happen to my children?" And he said, "Well, they'll be taken care of." And I said, "Well, will I ever be able to see them again?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, that sounds sad." And he said, "Mr. James," and he was calling me Mr. now, which is like what officers do to each other. So he was already referring to me as like an officer. He said, "Mr. James, I promise you, you won't remember a thing." And I thought about it, and I thought if I was going to do it, I'd do it for something rather than just, I don't know, my ego. And I said, but that technology I walked through, it told me that I smoked at the time, and I drank at the time, and it told me that, you know, I didn't have any blood clots, and it told me all this stuff.
What technology did you walk through?
It looked like a metal detector. It was just like something like a metal detector you walk through at an airport before you went into the underground base. Everybody had to walk through it every day.
Oh, okay.
And it told all your vitals. It told you everything, not just your IQ, but just everything about you. Everything physical you could imagine. This thing brought it up. And I said, you know, my father died of a heart attack when I was younger, of something called a widowmaker, they call it, where he had no cholesterol or nothing like that. He just got like a piece of cholesterol on the like arterial wall of his heart, and it broke off and it killed him. And it was just that quick. And I said, if we had some technology like that, you know, being able to detect blood clots or cholesterol or anything like that, that would have saved his life. I said, why didn't we have something like that? And he said, well, population control. He started going on about that. And I said, well, there has to be a side where they want to release that to the people. There has to be some sort of, I don't know, side where people want that to be released to just the general public. And he even said, you mean like a traitor? And I said, no, sir. I just mean, there has to be some sort of side. I just kept on saying that. I didn't want to say it any other way. I didn't want
people
to
that care about humanity,
or whatever. Yeah, in front of an officer. And he said, well, there is. I said, well, if you could get me on that side, then I'll do it. And he said, all right. And then as he was walking away, he goes, oh, and one more thing, Mr. James, you're going to be escorted by a reptile, and he's big. And I was like, what? And he just walked away, and I didn't know what to think of that. And
when you said reptile, were you thinking like a upright walking reptile, or what?
No. I didn't know what to think.
Giant lizard.
Know what to think. There was a time. There was also we were in the room playing Halo, and we were in between games, and all of us, one of the guys said, "Hey, did you see that reptile today?" And in my head, I was thinking, oh, there must be like lizards underground or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that, like monitor lizards or something. And he's like, yeah, it was big. So then in my head, I'm thinking, oh, a big reptile. He's like, yeah, and it talked weird too, didn't it? And I said, what? And I turned around and I said, there's talking lizards on the ground, like talking reptiles? Like, yeah, there's talking reptiles on the ground. And I said, what, do they just walk around all fours and they talk to you? And they're like, no, they walk upright like us. And it's like, they have feet and hands and everything. And I said, what? Said, oh, you're new here. You'll see him. Don't worry, or something like that. And that was it. And then there's another time I was talking to the guy. I was in the barracks, and it was after the XO already approached me. And even though word travels fast on a small base, no matter what, even if it's something like this. And I guess the other people knew that I volunteered or something. Somehow it got around or something. There was this one guy, he was in the room, and there was probably four or five of us all together. And he's like, yeah, man, I volunteered for the secret space program, and I was on the moon, and there was women, and he was just talking all kinds of stuff. And I said, well, did the XO talk to you personally? Because I wanted to know if he did this to everybody just to con him into volunteering for it, that he'd come. And he goes, no, I was just at work, and they asked me if I wanted to do it. And he's like, well, the XO said that I have 195 IQ, and I was going to fly a 4-kilometer long starship. Like, oh, you're going to be up there. They're going to take care of you and all this other stuff. He was just talking about all the women he slept with on the moon and stuff like that. There were like brothels there or something. And he's like, that's how they get you to work. He's like, they put shock collars around your neck, and they get you to work through sex and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, something that's like a feedback came on, like an intercom feedback. And it said something like, you're in violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Articles 34, 36, or something. If you don't stop, henceforth, we'll, $10,000 in fines and up to 10 years in prison or something like that, it said. And then it said, that'll be all, and it just went off. And everybody got really quiet. And I remember looking around, and I said, is there a speaker in your room? Because I didn't know what it was. And they said, no, they don't. They have technology where they don't need speakers. And I was like, what was that? And he said, we need to stop talking about it, because they didn't want to get in trouble. And then the next day, that guy Orlando told me that this was like 2003. And I remember PTing like running around the underground base. And there was a 5G tower. I never saw that before. And it was like the rectangles boxes. And he said that's what was, I guess, one of the things that thing could do. It could beam like a microwave, like beam into your room. And you could see in the person's room, and you could hear everything they were saying, and you could talk back to them if you wanted. So it was almost like a way to put a bug in your room without even needing a bug, not even needing someone to go into your house to put the bug there.
It's like the voice of God technology, or voice of skull, or whatever they call it. But it's in a 5G tower, is what you're saying? He
said the 5G tower, a concentrated microwave beam could get shot into your room, and it could just they had like monitors there where they could just see, just like I'm looking at you guys right now, and it could turn around and look anywhere it wanted and stuff,
Wow.
And hear everything in the room. So yeah, that's how I found out about that. And I mean, I was asking other guys on base, did you get approached? And I knew a guy named David. And he said, no, I didn't want to do it. And, I knew other guys, and it seemed like a lot of people didn't want to do it. But I said, they're going to make me pilot and all this other stuff. It kind of got to my ego, I guess. And I fell for it. But, yeah. Then I had watch on Friday. And so 3 Fridays in a row, I had watch on a Friday. And they had me sign like this many papers. I can't even tell you. Like, I tried reading them at first, and the guy said, if you read every paper, we're going to be here all day. So it just became like, initial here, sign here, sign here, sign here. And he was just flipping the papers for me.
Yeah, like when you're buying a house. Yeah.
Yeah. That was just,
exactly.
I mean, it took me like, I swear to God, 15 or 20 minutes. It was like a novel worth of papers I was signing. It was insane.
Yeah.
And then he got on the phone. He goes, all right, send him in. And he hung up. And he goes, sit down. And I sat down. And I was only there for like 5 minutes, and he goes, go with him. And there was this, in that same window that had, the really low top and everything, there was this huge reptile. And he was wearing like a blue skin tight uniform, and he had brown skin, and he had like alligator eyes, like a flat face. I remember his mouth kind of went across and then like went up. And I remember I stood up and I yelled out, Jesus Christ. Like, I never saw anything like that in my life. And I said, what is that thing? And he's like, the episodes warned you about this. There's going to be a reptile. I said, I think it was going to be that big. He was like 14 and a half feet tall, probably. He had to like kneel down in this room. No, he was about 9.5 feet tall. He was about 9.5 feet tall. And there was a kid there. It was different than the other guard I saw. He was a skinny kid, and he had like a rifle. And I said, it isn't going to eat me, is it? And when I said that, it sighed. Like, it let a 3-second in and like a 3-second out sigh. Like it was like a 9 to 5 to him. Like I heard like people like me before or something. And I said, can it read my mind? And he said, yes, you can read your mind. And I said, wow. and yeah, so go with him now. He's yelling, and I tried to stall, and eventually I just said, screw it. And I went, and I was walking, and on in these bases, they have a red, white, and blue kind of color scheme of lines on the floor, and white secret, blue's top secret, and red is, I don't know what it's called. And red goes everywhere, blue goes fewer, white goes to the least. White just goes down the main halls, but left and right hardly goes anywhere. And with the red ones, if it was only red, those rooms are just black. There was no lights or nothing. And I thought maybe if you walked into a motion detector, it kind of kicked lights in. We went in there, and almost immediately we went down one of the red lines only, and there was no light. It was just dark. So I had to get really close to this thing. I guess they could see really well in the dark. And just to know where he was. And the guard kept on hitting me in the back with his rifle. I didn't know why. And so I thought maybe I'm looking around too much. He hit it again. And it got to the point where I thought, like, if he does this again, I just got back from Iraq, so I didn't care if somebody pointed a rifle at me, really. It really wasn't that much of a thing. And he did it again, and I just threw him on the ground. I put my legs behind his legs, and I just pushed him forward until I knocked him on the ground and knocked all the wind out of him. And I lifted the rifle up, and I was just holding it, by the barrel. And I said, if you hit me with this weapon one more time, I'm going to shove it your ass sideways. And I heard the reptile yell out, leave us. And I turned, and he got up, he kind of roach crawled back, stood up, and he was looking at his weapon, looking at me, looking at the weapon, looking at me. So I just held it out, and he grabbed it, and he just took off. And when I went to turn around, I was like this close, like in front of him. It was just nothing but blue in front of me. And I looked up, and I just saw him like peering over his like chest muscles. He was just huge, and he was just like flexing every muscle he had just to intimidate me, I could tell. And I said, I'm sorry for what I said before. You're much more civilized than him. And its eyes were real small. When they get mad, they don't have like face muscles like we do. They don't bare their teeth, and they don't furrow their brow. They just get like, their eyes get real small, and they'll just like look at you with real small eyes. And his eyes opened up, and he just turned around and said, follow me. We walked for a while, and there were like, I don't know, golf carts.
Did they have
like bicycles? Huh?
Did he have any sort of smell that you remember?
I think maybe the musty, but I was wondering if it was him or if the place was musty because it was underground. It had almost like that a cave smell. Was, even though it was concrete and stuff like that, it still had like a musty smell about it.
Did he have a tail?
I think he may have had a small one. Like I said, it was real dark. And I think I might have saw like maybe like a small little nub coming out, but that was about it. It wasn't like a long tail. I think maybe just popping out of that tight blue uniform. But
and what's interesting to me is that this is all taking place here on Earth before you've even started your tour.
Yeah, these things were just underground in this base. They just lived there, as far as I know. And yeah, we were walking, and eventually we got to a catwalk, kind of like a stairway going up a wall with like a pressurized door. And we walked up it, and he opened the door, and we went in, and there was a chair there, and it was like it reminded me of a gas chamber chair. And I saw one when I was a kid, and it scared the crap out of me. Like I saw a gas chamber, and I just had like a flashback of that as a kid. And he said, "Get in the chair," and I did not want to get in it. I thought he was like trying to kill me or something. I had no idea what was happening. And he grabbed me, threw me in the chair, strapped me in, and I was trying to get away. Like he had my right arm in. He was holding me down with that arm and strapped me in. And I kind of pulled his thumb back, and I was making some headway, and he like headbutted me, I think. And I just kind of blacked out for a second. And I tried doing it again when I came to, and he's made like this growl that like alligators do, like the male ones do when they like a mating call. Like you could just feel the percussion like in your chest. You couldn't hear it. And then as you got closer, like I heard the growl, and he said, "Don't make me hit you again." So I took my thumb and I jabbed him right in the eye because I was just trying to get away. I was like scared to death. And he just pushed his whole hand against my chest, and I could feel like the fingers over here, but the palm was right here. And he just pressed in with like his body weight until like my chest collapsed in, and it hit my heart, like started pushing against my heart, and I just blacked out. And I woke up and I was strapped in, and you know, I was just trying to get out home my might. And I remember he was like, there was like some kind of panel that was on the wall that I couldn't see, like when you first walked in. All I could see was a peripheral of him just doing something. I don't know what he was doing. And then he looked at me and said, "I'm sorry I have to do this to you." And then I walked out. He walked out, closed the door, and it was pretty painful. I don't know what it was like. It hurt. And I talked to the XO later just to get ahead of the story so it makes more sense before I got out of the command. And he told me that was a density chamber, artificially push you from 3rd to 5th density.
Really?
And he said it needed that sealed door to build the pressure up, to push you up into 5th density, and also so it wouldn't escape and affect anybody outside. So it had to be like a sealed and closed door like that. Anyways, I woke up and the straps were off me, and I saw it. I looked to my right, and there were 3 guys just laying like on a mattress on the floor, and they looked like they just picked them up from a club. They looked like club kids or something.
Club kids.
And
what do you mean they're dressed up in like street clothes or something? Just like
yeah, it looked like they were just drunk, and somebody just like picked them up. And you know, I don't know what you used to call that back in the day whenever you'd wake up on a ship, you know what I mean? They just kidnap you and you were like recruited into the British Navy. That's how they used to recruit people in bars and stuff. It seemed like the same thing they kind of did here. They just kind of picked people up that were drunk out of clubs and bars and stuff like that and recruited them into the program.
Wow.
And
maybe that's why I spent so much time in the bars. They were trying to.
Yeah, they were wearing like, you know, blousy shirts, and one had a motorcycle jacket on. They were just wearing like regular clothes. And I looked in front of me, and the reptile's back was pointed towards me. And there was a guy talking to him, and he was a first-class petty officer on the base, and I didn't recognize him until later. And he looked like a Gestapo. He had like slick back with pomade, like an undercut haircut, blonde, and he was wearing like a black leather trench coat and had, you know, black leather knee-high boots. And I slid off the chair, and I remember like one of the footrests hit me in the back, and it hurt. And I was just kind of like swaying around, and I said, they both looked at me, and I said, "Can I go to bed now?" I think, because it was like you have amnesia. I didn't know what was happening. It was just, I was really loopy. It just felt really weird, and I fell down to my hands and knees. And I remember his boots in front of me, and he yelled out, "I should have you executed for what you did to my man." And he was yelling, "Do you hear me?" And I fell down on my side, and the reptile said, "Doesn't matter, he doesn't remember." And then I remember being carried by it like a duffel bag, like under the arm. It was just carrying me like that. My head was facing in the back, and I could just look around and see everything passing me. And I remember I said, you know, I had to go to the bathroom. Like, I have to pee. I just kept on yelling that, and it just ignored me. And then I saw lights, and I'm guessing I went through a portal because it found out later that I was on the moon. It was just like that quick. Like, you just walked through something. I saw a bright light, and then I laid me down on the table, and laid me down on a bed. And I looked around, and it looked like a hospital bed, but it was really big. Like, it could have been made for one of them, just like the chair. It was really big, like it could have been made for one of them. But it had the guardrails on the sides and stuff. And I heard like ripping and tearing. And I looked over, and there was a woman, and she had like she was tearing out, heart monitors, little stickers like from sterilized packs and stuff like that, sticking them on me. And I saw one of those LED like hospital lights, big round ones with the little small LEDs everywhere. And he said he has to urinate, and I heard a big rip, and then she put a catheter in me, and then I just I asked her if I could hold her hand. I don't know why. I was like a little kid. It was weird. It was like I had no memory. It was just amnesia, and then I passed out, and then woke up next day, and she was there, and she gave me like physical tests, and then put your fingers between mine, squeeze, just stuff like that. And she had smart glass patterns. The first time I saw one, it was like a plexiglass, and she could do things like kind of put her fingers in it and pull images up and spread it out, and then kind of magnify it, and then she could spin it around. And it was just like a stereotypical. It was like a picture of a humanoid and it looked like she was looking at my, I don't know, blood pressure, bloodstream,
Sure.
nerves, things like that. She could kind of see all that with the smart glass pad.
I'm going to slow you down just for a second. Going back to the base. So you just went through a portal from a base here on Earth, and you ended up on the moon.
Yeah.
And which we've heard from almost every insider.
Yeah.
And what base exactly was this that you were on? You might have said it earlier, but just for the audience.
Saint Mawgan.
So, and then where's that exactly located?
Huh?
Where's that located?
That's in England.
England? Okay.
Yeah, Newquay.
Okay.
Newquay, England. Yeah. And yeah, she was leaving, and I was just like, don't leave. I was just kind of like a kid. I was like, I didn't want her to leave me. I didn't want to be there for 12 hours again. I guess I was going to get tested again. And I said, I don't know. I just said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. All I know is I don't want you to leave me. I was like, and then she just took my hand, and we went out, and there were these lifts, 4 lifts. I immediately saw like 4. We looked like we were in a condo, like inside of a courtyard of a condo. And I looked up, and like the ceiling was this bright light. And I looked on either side of me, and it looked like there were trains, and it looked like we were in between shifts because there was a lot of hustle and bustle. There was a lot of men with like white or gray suits on, kind of grayish suits, and it was just people, you know what I mean, like from Earth. It just looked like humans from Earth, and they were all walking around and to go to the trains. And there was like a lot of women up on the like the condo areas, like waving with holding babies and stuff like that, or having kids with them and stuff like that. And she took me to one of the lifts. The lift just came down. There was no railing or anything like that. And we walked on it, and it went up, and it went right to her room. And I remember there was a woman with a kid, and she was standing there. There was no railing. And I looked at her, and I said, "Aren't you afraid you're going to fall?" Because we were like 5 stories up, and there was no railing. And she said, "Oh, no, you can't fall." And she just walked out. And there was just like a field or something that you could walk on. And she said the kids like to play on it. They're not supposed to, but I said, "How far does it go?" She goes, "All the way against the other wall. You can just walk all the way across, and they won't fall." And then we went to a room, and it was real, just bare bones, kind of Spartan, just like a couch, a table, a bar with 4 chairs. And we went to a room, and we started kissing, and she said, "What's your name?" And I said, "I don't remember." And she said, "Come on, think. Everybody remembers their name." And I thought about it, and I said, "Daryl." And then, and this, I'm going to explain it like this because this is how it happened to me. It was like right after that, I just woke up, and I was like back in England, like in my room, and I kind of had memories of people in like blonde hair people in blue suits, and then it was just kind of like I thought I was having a nightmare about being tortured, and I heard people laughing or something like that, and I remember being carried at night, and then I just like woke up here, and I looked out my window, and I was back in England. And my uniform was laid like perfectly on my chair. But the chair was in front of me, and my slacks were laid down first, and then the top was laid down, and then my tie, and then the shoes were underneath. And it was just something I never would have done. I would have put it in the closet or something. And I was still wearing my socks and my boxer shorts, and I just sleep with shorts on. I still have my t-shirt on, my socks, and I was like, "What is happening?" And I was even like yelling, like I was with somebody. I was like with this woman. I didn't know what had happened, and I walked out of the room, and one of the guys was there, and he was kind of like cocky and thought he was like the head guy at the barracks, and he goes, "You made it." And I said, "What?" He's like, 20 years is a long time. He's like, "You made it back." And I didn't know like what was happening, and I don't know, it just freaked me out.
So then all your memories came like later then.
Yeah, like the thing is I had memories, but it wasn't until the XO really started talking to me before I left the command that he just started telling me everything. And it turned out like he was almost like a dad to me and stuff. He kind of adopted me. He just looked out for his people. I would see him every now and again. He would visit and stuff.
So
and he told me like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. What age were you exactly when you were taken and brought back?
I was 25.
25. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many more years did you finish out in the military, in the Navy before?
I got it at 27. I got it right after this. This really messed me up. Yeah, this screwed me up. Yeah, this like he even said that was one of the things he was trying to get me to go back in the chair to get my mind rewiped and everything else. That I just started having memories and memories and memories. But
So you started talking to the XO, and that's how stuff came back.
Yeah, that's like he told me a lot, and that's how I remembered a lot of it. He told me a bunch. I was in the office with him for like an hour, and we just talked. And but I mean, in between this, it was this weird stuff was happening. Like there was a bar on base, and there were these British guys in the bar, and I remember like this big goon guy, like he had a shaved head and he was big, and he said something like, "Oh, it's the king of the Taigetans." And he's like, "That's what you said you were." He's like, "You could play guitar, and Aquino really fucked you up, man." And like, you told him that, and that's why he let you go. But I thought you were full of crap. But he believed you. And I remember the other guys that were sitting on the bar. They're like, "Stop saying that. You're not supposed to say stuff like that." And it was really weird. And I didn't know like what was. But I kind of went to that bar just to hear what this guy had to say about me. It was like this weird kind of. I would go back and forth to this bar, and it was like this weird kind of fascination I had of a memory that I didn't remember at all.
Yeah, he knew more than you did, I guess.
Yeah, he seemed to know like all stuff about me, and I didn't know. He's like, "You play guitar," and I was like, "I did when I was like in high school." He's like, "Oh yeah," and he was going on about stuff he knew about me. It was strange, and I didn't know this guy from Adam. It was really weird.
So you said, he said Aquino really messed you up. I remember hearing you talk about in your interview with James about the children in cages and stuff. What part of the story was that in the programs, or was that here on Earth?
That was on that base, deep underground, like in caverns of that same base. That wasn't on the moon or anything. That was on that base.
And can you tell us a little bit about what was going on there?
You want me to? Fast forward to that.
Well, is it fast forwarding? I mean, we can stay in order. I didn't know. I thought maybe.
Well, as far as I remember it, as far as my recall went, this is like how my recall went. But yeah, it was just, and I remember that guy Orlando. It was like seemed like people knew something and they were trying to get me to remember or something, because I did get like everybody knew. I met that same first class on the bar out in town. He was like sitting in the shadows. He's like, "Dude, Michael Aquino messed you up, man." He's like, "God," and like it seemed like it was like a rumor spreading around base where everybody heard about this, me being like tortured for a couple of days. And I was like, "Yeah, man, he just messed you up really bad," and he was telling me about it. And
are you familiar? Are you familiar with Rebecca Rose?
No.
She has a testimony that includes Michael Aquino also. She has memories with him as well. I just think that's interesting how it corroborates. But continue.
Yeah, and anyways, yeah, it just went on like that, and I would go to this bar sometimes. These guys would talk about this, and that guy Orlando, he said, just out of the blue, it was weird. He said, one of the first classes was telling me there's a machine that can extract your soul, and they have to do it when you're old enough, because the body is mostly stationary because it's just being used as a tool. So you can't be like 4 or 5 or you'll get brittle bones and you'll get sick and die. The body will, but they have to do it before puberty for some reason. he said that's what they did to Michael Aquino. And he's like, this guy, he just said this out of the blue to me, almost like he was trying to see if I remembered what happened to me. Everybody kind of knew about it. And I said, really? He's like, yeah, one time I saw Aquino in the break room, and I went on a 12-hour shift. When I came back, he was just sitting in the same exact spot, just staring at the wall, like nothing was there. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. And he's like, one of the first class petty officers told him about some sort of machine that can do that, and that's what Aquino was. I said, well, what controls Aquino? And he says, well, I don't know. I was like, like he just talked about how like another consciousness can go into this body now and control it like a puppet almost.
Wow.
And I was like, well, what happens is that who controls him? And he said, I don't know. He didn't know what it was.
It's probably what's going on in the political arena right now as well.
I'm guessing, yeah, this machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that went on for a while, and then I was getting out of the command, and I saw the Master Chief first, and then I saw the XO. And when I saw the XO, he looked like really sad, and he stood up real slow, and he walked to the end of the table, but he just did it like that. He just appeared at the end of the table. It was insane. I thought I had a stroke for a second, and then he did it again. Then he was right in front of me, like a foot in front of me. I took a foot back, step back, and it was because he was higher density. That's why ETs appear they can do things like appear out of nowhere or walk through walls and stuff like that. Because when you're a higher density, you can do really fast motions and movements and things like that. And he was kind of like letting me know. And he just looked really sad. And he said, "Can you hear what I'm saying to you?" And he said it telepathically. And I said, and at first I said yes. And he wanted me to like give him like a physical gesture. So I nodded my head yes. And he said, he just started going on about all these things that happened to me. And I wanted some sort of timeline to remember. And I said, I remember I was on the moon. And I remember being in mines. And I remember that part. But that's really all I remembered. And he said, I said, how long was I there? He said, 3 months. And I said, where were those mines? I said, were they on Earth? Because I didn't really know at the time. He said, they were on the moon. I said, I was on the moon? He said, you were on Mars too. He said, in the Dark Fleet. I said, how long was I on Mars? I said, how long was I in the Dark Fleet? He said, 2 years. And then I said, and the rest of the time I was in Solar Warden, because I remember that conversation I had with him. I said, the rest of the time I was in Solar Warden. He said, you were with them, is how he put it. And I thought about it, and I said, I started looking at Billy Meyer's stuff. I just bought a computer there, and I was looking at Billy Meyer's stuff for some reason. And I said, they're the Pleiadians, right? And he said, we call them Nordics. And I said, what do they call themselves? He said, Tagetans. And then he told me that I would remember my memories in real time, is how he put it. In other words, as it's happening to me there, he said, he kind of explained there's like two of me, on the same timeline. And I'm going to, whatever the me up here has a memory that stands out to that person, I'm going to like remember that. That's like how it works. It's like, I don't know like the future of me of what's happening. I don't remember it, even though I've already come back, but it's not until I come back where I'll become like whole again, is how he kind of explained it.
Wow.
Like it's not until I get out of the time loop that I'll be whole again.
I've heard similar things like, like even sometimes a pain. Is this true? Like a pain that your body goes through in the SSP, you might actually feel some of that here in this body, or do you not have any experience with that?
I don't really have experience with that, but the memories are, I have, because not every day you remember. It's monotonous like anything else, but certain things stand out to you,
Yeah.
And he was just telling me about that. And
so I've heard that about the Pleiadians also, that they don't call themselves they only refer to themselves as Pleiadians for our benefit.
Well, Pleiadian's a whole star system. So like Tegeta is a planet in the Pleiades, right?
I think it's a star.
Or it's a star. Sorry,
yeah.
It's a star.
Yeah.
So it's probably the solar system of that star. They would be the Tegetans. And then there's another one that's also Pleiadians. I can't remember. Alcyon, is it?
Maybe. I mean, I don't actually.
I can't remember. There's another one that I've heard like the Tegetans are like the good Pleiadians, and then there's another one that are like the negatively oriented ones.
But I don't
know if that's true or not.
I don't know.
I've just heard that.
And the Germans call them Nordics
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, the military, the U.S. military too. Military kind of has a nickname for everything, and they call them Nordic.
Okay.
Because they're like tall and blonde hair.
Yeah, they're pretty tall.
Like
there's like a
Nordics.
warrior caste, and they're taller, and then there's like a regular caste. The regular men are probably about 6'4", and the warrior about 7 foot, and the women are about 5'9", I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's just how it went for me, and so. I mean, I just started having memories after that. He just started. I don't know if you want me to tell everything he told me right then and there, but
Well, it's up to you if you think it's relevant to the story as far as helping people understand.
Yeah, this is only my second time telling it, so I don't know if I should bob back and forth the way it kind of felt like to me, or should I just tell it the way it happened in real time, like the way it happened. I don't know.
Whatever feels natural. Just tell it how you remember it, if that's easier.
Yeah, he told me about that, and he told me that for him it was only 5 days ago where Aquino tortured me. He time traveled a lot. He told me he was 400 years old. Even age regrets that many times.
Wow.
And he said that after 40 years, it could be detrimental to your psychological welfare, like it could be psychologically harming to you. And he said he had it done over 400 times. I said, how often do you go for a psych eval? And he said like twice a month, like every 2 weeks, he had to get a psychological evaluation. Yeah, he just told me he looked similar to Mike Pence, if you ever heard that. And he said that like people from his timeline look like Mike Pence. He said that they have black hair, black eyebrows, brown eyes, usually sometimes blue eyes. Their hair begins to salt and pepper at 40 years old, and by the time they're 50, it turns pure white, and their eyebrows turn white at 70. I asked him what the life expectancy was, and he said 110. I said, "Oh, that's awful. It's like Star Trek's 120."
Yeah.
And he said that he went on about how he was trying to change the timeline or something so we could reach our full potential, and that was like his mission and stuff like that. But
how many people within the military actually know or aware of the secret space program? Like is it?
He told me. Yeah, he told me. He said when you get your Eagles, he said. I said what's? And I was kind of really disoriented. I said what? And he goes and he pointed at his rank and he said it's based off the Roman Eagle. He said captain in the Navy and colonel and all the other branches. He says they all know about the secret space program. And are we allowed to say?
Say it all. Whatever you want to say.
About they know about the children in the underground bases and the adrenochrome and all that. And a lot in these underground bases are used primarily as like trafficking this drug, this adrenochrome drug. That's what it's for. And he told me he got more in depth about that, and he told me that the cages were electrified, and they would electrify the cages. And I got a really close-up good look of it. And I remember they were about 3/16 wide, the bars, and really flat, and they looked copperish because I got real up close to one of them. And he said, yeah, they shock them until they're unconscious. They take them out, and then they take a pint or two of blood out of them. And I said, well, some of them are very young. I said, wouldn't that kill, like taking especially 2 pints out of like a toddler? Some were like 4 or 5 years old. Others were like, 9, 10. And he says it does. And he said that they grind them up in a machine that looks like a wood chipper, and they feed them to the other kids, and that's what they eat. And he said when they hit puberty, they're no good to them anymore, and they slit their throats because they don't have as many stem cells, I guess, is what he said. And they grind them up and they feed them to the other kids. And I said they were white. They were very, very white, like ghosts. Like they never like went outside or they never left those cages or anything like that.
Probably no muscle mass or anything like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they were like feral. You could just tell that they were like feral.
And you actually witnessed this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to that part because this is part of it. When they were dragging me, after I came back for poking that reptile in the eye, Aquino like wanted to mess me up. That was the thing. And I remember there was a girl dragging my right side and a man dragging my left side, a woman and a man. And the woman said, I'm tired. She said, he's heavy. Let's take a break. And she kind of like dropped my arm, and he was just holding on to one side, and I was looking around. And this little girl like just scurried up and like slammed the front of this cage. And she hit the cage and said, "Get the fuck back." And the girl kind of like linched back. And I looked around and there was just like almost like dog kennels, like stacked on top of each other, probably 5 high by about 5 wide. And it was just a bunch of kids, like little kids in these like little dog kennels, is what it looked like.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just...
And then behind them was like a type of like chimera type of thing. And it looked like it was like the lower half of a spider with like the torso of a man coming out. And
what the
at
fuck?
the elbows, it was like spider hair almost. It was like flesh, normal flesh, and then it became like wiry black hair. And it just had like the claws of a spider, like the prongs, like 2 black prongs for hands. And its eyes were like a spider in the sense that they were in the front, but then they went up the side of the head, and it had like a tuft on top of hair, and it had fangs. And it was just staring at the wall in front of it, and it was in like almost like a zoo cage kind of thing. It had bars and everything, but it was just motionless, like the way a spider would be, and just stared at the wall in front of it. And I remember whenever they drug me into the room, and they said, some of the Satanists said, "Let's just feed him the max," and another one said, "No, we'll wait for Aquino." And Robert, the XO, he told me that that's what they called the whatever it was, hybrid chimera. They called it max. He said they were going to feed you to it. And I said, "Why did they do that?" I said, "Why did they do that?" And he said that reptiles like to do that because human DNA is the most malleable DNA in the universe. And they like to experiment with it. They do things like that with it. They make hybrids and stuff.
Holy cow. And this guy is on Oprah, Aquino. I mean, it just makes you wonder how many other celebrities and people are involved in this, and which we know a lot are, and there's a lot of discrepancies and controversy about proof or evidence of it, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the A-list celebrities are involved.
Oh yeah, that's what he was going off. He was just going off. Yeah, he said, "Do you know the guys from South Park?" And I said, "Yeah, Trey Parker, Matt Stone." I said, "I know them." He's like, "Remember when they went to the Oscars?" And I said, "Yeah, they went in drag and they were on acid." He's like, "Yeah, that's because they hate them." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "They hate Hollywood." He's like, "They know what they are." And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "They're scum. They're just scum." He was just talking about how much he hated them. And he told me about the adrenochrome episode of South Park. And that was supposed to be like a soft disclosure to get ready for the actual real disclosure of this happening. It was kind of seen in an over the top kind of comedial way because I guess the white hats of the military actually approached them and said, "Would you like to do this episode?" And they said yes. And he said that that's what that was about, that episode. It was about how much, and he talked about how, he said Tom Hanks was like the kingpin of the adrenochrome thing. And he said they got him in Australia, and that's what that whole, where he supposedly caught the coronavirus in Australia. He said the coronavirus would be like code word for kind of like, this person's been taken out. And like this celebrity got corona, this celebrity got corona. And he talked about how
that's what a lot of us suspected anyway. So
yeah,
that's confirmation.
And that's whenever they were all panicking, getting on Twitter, going live, and they were like clearly speaking in code to each other. And they're like,
the cards and stuff. They were like, "Oh, I'm doing a card trick," and
Tom Hanks gets it, we'll all go down or something.
And then
David Spade said that. Yeah, he said if Tom Hanks goes down, we all go down. Yeah.
Remember the Ellen's videos where she looked like she just got done crying and she's like,
it
was weird.
It makes me wonder, if they're just all clones now.
Well, he talked about deep fake technology back then, and I even said like, "Oh, that sounds scary to be able to do that to somebody." And he said it was his brother. Every time you see interviews and stuff like that, that's his brother because his brother sounds just like him. He said he did the voice for the toy Woody.
He did.
And he said he did that voice because he sounds just like him. And he talked about how when I was on that base, everybody was bragging about how Tom Cruise went on the base. And I was like, that guy Orlando said, Tom Cruise was here last week. And I said, what? He said, they let him in the base. And I said, the underground base? Yeah. I said, why? I said, I don't know. Like, he didn't know. And Robert, he told me that he was one of the main distributors for the Scientologists of Adrenochrome. And he asked me that album, Little Elephant by the White Stripes had just came out like less than 2 years ago. And he said, that song, Little Ghost? And I said, yeah. He's like, that's Jack White was allowed into not this base, but another base, another underground base. And he saw the little kids and talking about how, can you scare me up some love? He was saying was about like, they got to put them through stress to get the drug, and I guess scare, and love is the drug they're extracting from the adrenochrome. And talking about how I thought I was holding a hand, but I was holding a glove or something like that. And he said they're like veal because they never leave the cages. So when you touch their skin, it feels like it'll just fall right off of them, because they have no kind of definition. Yeah, and he was just telling me all this stuff about how it was going to go down, and they were going to use that adrenochrome as like one of the biggest ways of just incriminating these people.
Yeah.
You know where this drugs come from, so it's the same as murder,
Jesus. That's a lot. We know about this, right? There's people who've done digs on this, gone down the rabbit hole, but hearing it firsthand like this, or
there's a certain letter of the alphabet that
or we've already, we've already
said. You're talking about that? He brought up that too. He said that was real, but then when it went away for 7 or 8 months, that happened like 2 years ago or something. Are we not allowed to say that letter?
No, you
the
can't.
Letter.
You're talking about 17?
17.
Yeah.
17.
It started 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, but they went
He said that's what it was. It was like,
the silence, yeah.
So what happened? Go ahead.
Yeah, he said it was like the quantum computer, and it was like both officer and enlisted working together to try to like bring this down. And he said it would go away for 7 or 8 months, and then it would come back, and that wouldn't be real. He said, but it doesn't matter because it's already happening by that time. So I don't know if you remember, like 2 years ago, it went like it didn't, and no posts happened for like 7 or 8 months.
Yeah.
And then it came back out of the blue. And he says when it comes back, that's going to be fake. But he says it doesn't matter because it's already, the events are starting to happen. Everything is starting to happen by that time.
Yeah, I kind of.
So he said, yeah, it was real in the beginning, is what he told me.
Yeah, I've heard from like other remote viewers and channelers and stuff, take it for what it is. But a few people have looked into it and said somewhere along the line it was hacked and it was no longer real anymore.
Yeah, like when it took that, like when it was gone, he said it would be gone for 7 or 8 months, and that's about how long it went away. And then when it comes back,
you said it was a quantum computer.
Yeah, he talked about a quantum computer. He talked about stuff like I didn't really know. It was over my head, and he was saying like it was a conglomeration. I remember he said it was both officer and enlisted, like working together to just try to remove as far as I can tell, we're just ruled by a bunch of Satanists and psychopaths, just crazy people,
Yeah. But
the only way you could do that is just you're ruled by crazy people.
Yeah. But do you it does appear that it's being cleaned up now, finally. Like it's like the all these dark people that have been ruling us for so long and doing all this stuff, it's finally getting cleaned up, and these white hats are finally in control, and we're being helped by benevolent ETs, it appears, as well. So like our friends that want to see us overcome this and not do everything for us, but they're helping, they're doing what they can as well.
Does that line up with what you heard?
What I experienced too, just not what I heard, but what I experienced. Yeah, they're not going to drag us across the finish line, and he also Robert talked about how it's going to be hard, but it has to be hard. So it'll be ingrained in us that this will never happen again. He says it's going to be hard, but it has to be that way. So people will always remember, and this won't ever happen again.
Wow.
That's exactly.
Did he mention Trump's involvement at all?
He mentioned Trump, but he just kind of said he's all right. He just said that it was kind of like a military thing. Like, we're doing everything. Like, Trump's just there. He even mentioned about how the looking glass technology and how there was a 96 percentile. He said that Trump would win, and then it was a 3% chance that Hillary would win. And then it was a 1% chance of this, Jeb Bush just somehow wins out of nowhere, just some sort of anomaly. It gave like a 1% of an anomaly chance. But he said even if Hillary Clinton does win, the outcome would be the same. It would just take a little bit longer. It was just Trump would stay out of our way, is what he said. He said Trump is staying out of our way. That's how he put it.
Yeah, and I feel like he was. I feel like he was assisting. He wanted to assist the military in this. Right now we have an administration who's clearly working against this timeline.
Oh yeah. And this could have been an anomaly that they weren't expecting, but even so, but he even said that about the gates. about how the fences were going to be in front of the White House, and about how at first they believed that the politicians think that the military is there to help them, but they're actually there to arrest them, to take them. And he talked about that. I don't know if you remember that the general that was in charge of that whole situation, he said, we're here to oversee a peaceful transition into military power. He didn't say into the Biden administration. He said into military power. I remember him saying that.
Mm-hmm,
he wouldn't just make a mistake like that, especially a general. So.
Wow, this is incredible. We haven't even got into your time in the programs yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of going fast.
Yeah.
No, I'm going as far as like I remember. Yeah, I'm going. Yeah,
it all ties together. That's the thing.
It really does.
It's all, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we can. Part two will focus primarily on your time in the programs, because I have a few more questions about what you're talking about now and what this guy told you. I know you mentioned something about the Obamas. Did he say something about that too?
Yeah. He said, he said that the way it started was like this, as far as the military. He said there's going to be a coup. And when he said coup, I was kind of like, oh, like what side should I be on? Like coups aren't good, or And he's like, no, you're going to want this coup. He's like, you don't understand. It's going to get really bad. And he said, it started with George Bush Sr. and they hated him, like the military hated him. And then it went on to Clinton, and then that's when they started putting all these events into action, because they really hated the Clintons. And then he went on about when he was talking to me, it was George Bush Jr. And he said he's just like a pawn, like we really don't care about him. He's just a dummy. And then he said we're gonna have a black president. I said, oh really? He goes, yeah, his name's gonna be Barack Hussein Obama. And I went, what? Like we just killed like Saddam Hussein like 2 years ago, like 3 years ago, like we just hung him. And I was like, what? We're gonna have a president named Barack Hussein Obama? And he said, yeah. And he just kind of smiled.
And what year was he telling you all this?
He was telling me in 2005. This was 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was Bush Jr. at the time when I was there.
Okay. And so yeah, what else did he say about Barack?
He said that, he was just as dirty as the rest of them with everything, with the drug and the kids and everything else. And he was going to be hung, I believe. He even said that he was going to try to take Kenyan citizenship to get out of it. And he said he was from Kenya. And he said that his wife was a transgender, but they said that they didn't consider that important enough to like bring to the surface. Like, and I'm not sure if they said they hung both him and his wife, but him, the Clintons, and he went on about the whole thing with the Clintons with Hillary. And he said 5 days ago was when I was tortured, and according to him, even though it was 2 years to me, but he saw the videotape 3 days ago of the tape. And I said, what is it? And he said, I can't say. And he was really like, it really bugged him for me to bring it up. And I said, come on, tell me, what is it? He finally just broke down. He's like, no, I'm sorry. That's not how it happened. He goes, they're going to hang the Clintons. And I said, oh, good. He said, why? And I said, I hate them. He goes, oh, you hate the Clintons? I said, yeah. He goes, why? He goes, I said, they're murderers. And he's like, he got right in my face. And he's like, how did you know that? How did you know they were murderers?
Yeah.
And I said, well, anytime somebody investigates them, they wind up jumping out of a window or committing suicide. He goes, oh, that. He goes, well, that's true. Yeah. He's like, you don't understand, though. He's like, they're like Jeffrey Dahmer murders. And that's how he put it. He's like, they're murderers. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, Bill's not as bad, but, he knows what Hillary's doing. And so he's just as guilty. And I said, what do you mean? He told me about the tape he saw and how she, peeled the little girl's face off and was like mocking her with it and holding in front of her face like it was a mask. And the girl was screaming. And he says, you don't understand.
Yeah,
he's like, when you see this
they're way beyond
girl, you're going to see one of your daughters. He goes, you're going to see your own daughter when you see this. Because he said that there's going to be a public hanging for them. They're going to eventually show the people this tape. And he's like, the people, and I remember I thought like public hanging sounded kind of savage to me or something. And he said, you don't understand. Like when you see this, you're going to see your own daughter. And you're like the people of the world, not just of America, like are demanding this to happen. So it's like, it has to happen. And he told me that they're going to hang him publicly for that videotape. Yeah, he just saw it 3 days ago. Cause like I said, he time traveled so much, but according to him, it was only 3 days ago he saw this.
Wow. And man, this blows my mind that this was all told to you in 2005.
Yeah, way before any of this.
Yeah, and we've heard about these public hangings and all this stuff, but we've yet to see that. And I don't know. It probably has happened already, right?
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, and he talked about the 10 days of darkness. He talked about that, but he said it's only going to be 3 or 4. He said, 10 is like if like everything possible goes wrong. And he talked about how it's going to be unlimited energy. That's why they're doing it. They were like transferring our grid into like a Tesla kind of power, unlimited energy. And he says it might even not be a day. It might be something very smooth. And but he said 3 or 4 days. He's like, that's all it's going to be. And he said he mentioned something about a TV channel just dedicated. That's all that's going to be on television. And it's just going to be showing all these trials and stuff like that, all this stuff happening, and showing people just everything that was happening and going on.
I wonder
that we've already heard that. So
I wonder if something happened though, because this was 2005, right? I wonder if like timelines change. Like I wonder if if any of that's even going to happen, because
he said it can be prolonged, but it can't be stopped, according to Looking Glass. He says they can.
Really?
He put it like this. He said there's 2 master chess players, and the winner knows he's going to win in 8 moves, and the loser knows he's going to win in 8 moves. But the loser won't resign, is how he put it. He said the loser is still taking pawns. So that's what all these fires are. He told me about the fires in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
He told me about how a third of Australia would burn down. He told me about the riots. He told me about how they're going to tear down all the statues.
Was the coronavirus
we put back up? Huh?
Was COVID done as like just a delay tactic, just to like?
Yeah, he said it was something done by the bad guys as like a delay thing, but it's being used by the good guys as like cover.
That lines up.
To do things behind. So they're taking advantage of the situation. Yeah, he said like everybody's gonna be wearing masks, and I said, he's like, you're gonna have to, and I was like, I would never wear a mask. Kind of that attitude. You got to go to the grocery store with it on and everything else, but yeah, it was just like, good Lord, like I couldn't. Yeah, 2005, you never would have thought there'd be a president with a name Hussein in his name, but you certainly wouldn't have thought there'd be everybody would be wearing masks, and everybody would be afraid of the flu and all this other stuff.
And we'd have cardboard cutouts in our sports arenas. And I mean,
yeah.
Well, he said it's going to help us too, as far as that's concerned, because things like sports and even movies and stuff, they're not going to be as a big deal to us after this. We're going to be more concerned about, our politics and, who's electing our leaders. We're going to take a bigger participation in those kind of events.
Yeah, the Roman circus isn't going to work so well anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, movies are going to be, and he talked about streaming and stuff. That's going to be like the new way of movies. Like movies are going to be a thing of the past. They're going to have them every now and again or something like that. But sports and movies, they're still going to be around, but they're not going to be nearly as popular as they used to be.
Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing that happen. I mean, I used to be a diehard hockey fan, and now I could care less, it's just literally, seriously though, it's like, well, when you start realizing what's taking place, like it just becomes so uninteresting. It's like, it's almost silly. It really.
Yeah. There's more important things in life. That's for sure.
What the heck just happened?
Oh,
that was weird. We're still recording now. Yeah.
So is it gonna? So did you? Let me see it. So sorry, get it out. So obviously everything's gonna come out at some point. Is it gonna be? I'm guessing it's going to be some kind of a process. Like it's not. Is it going to be all at once, kind of a thing, or is it going to be like this thing comes out, then this thing, then it kind of builds? Or do you know?
Says, he talked about the press and how they denied it and denied it and denied it. And he says there's eventually going to come a time where the press just can't deny it anymore. Or just the hypocrisy and everything else that's coming out. And that's like another thing about this. He just talked about how there's going to be so much hypocrisy that the people are it's going to be shoved in people's faces, which is about, the example I can think of is like the Russian collusion and all that other stuff. And then whenever anybody wants to try to investigate, the Biden election, it's like, oh, that never happens. There could never be any kind of fraud or collusion. The people aren't dumb.
Or that China is like behind all of them.
Yeah.
So what did this feel like to you watching all this stuff play out, already having like foresight that these events were going to happen?
I honestly, when I got processed out of Virginia, for the first 2 weeks, it went through my head over and over again for like 2 weeks. I have family I don't know about. I have people I don't know about. I was on worlds I don't remember. And I just kept on. I remember I had a Post-it note with names on it, and I read these names over and over and over and over and over again. And it got to the point where it was just driving me insane, after about 2 weeks of doing this. And I was doing it for like 2 weeks. I really didn't remember the guy, and it wouldn't have been such a big deal, but the guy was telling me this telepathically, and I forgot I could do that. You know what I mean? And number two, he was a captain in the United States Navy, and he told me all this stuff. And it wasn't just some schmo like telling it off the street. It was this guy was telling me all this stuff. And I got to a point where I just said, this is going to drive me crazy, and I just have to forget about this for now. You know what I mean? I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't think about this every day of my life. It'll drive me nuts. And I just got to a point where I said, I can't think about this anymore. And I threw the paper away, and I just said, you can't think about this anymore. It was just driving me insane.
Really?
And that was one of the reasons he wanted me to go back in the chair, he said, because when people have memories of the 20-year and back, like vivid memories like I have, 9 times out of 10, they kill themselves in the first 6 months. They just can't take it, and that's why he was worried about, he kept on saying, this is going to destroy you. If you don't go back to the chair, it's going to destroy you.
Interesting. And I, just being an experiencer myself and just having memories of some experiences, it can drive you nuts sometimes. Like, I can see, just from the little bit that I remember, somebody who has a full recall of a 20-year tour in space, what that would do to you psychologically. I can't even imagine.
It's not only that. I mean, it's the density thing too. That's a big part of it, and I think that's what he's talking about. You realize you're being robbed. You know what I mean? We're not supposed to be like this. You get that feeling of this. This isn't the way things aren't supposed to be. We're supposed to be better than this, but we're being artificially kept down.
Yeah.
You have that feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Not one of us that's going through this awakening we all would admit that something just feels off,
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to go through that path of self-discovery and find true happiness is really difficult. When you know that like everywhere you turn, you're just being stepped on,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so that I remember, and he even told me though, he said, there's going to come a time where I guess when you're getting close to coming out of the time loop, I think everybody goes through this. You go through like almost like a process where you just start remembering more and more. And then once you get fully out of it, you remember a lot more. And I don't think I'm fully out of it yet, but he says you're going to come to a time where you're just going to have to start telling people. He's like, you're going to get like an urge where you can't help it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't keep it to yourself anymore, and you're going to have to tell others.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming forward and sharing what you're sharing. I mean, this is incredible stuff. And we haven't even gotten into anything off world yet, except for the moon. But for this first part, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this one up, and then we'll be back again, guys, and we'll get into his time, his 20 years. Even the dog agrees that we've already spent enough time on this.
Sorry, I live on a main road and somebody's walking by the house. Sorry.
Oh, it's no problem at all. I have dogs that have kind of interfered with us.
We're used to that.
Yeah. So, you guys, we will be back in the next episode. We're going to dive into the time in the programs of 20 years, and because that's just as fascinating to me, and I'm sure everybody else is dying to hear it. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night.